Think for yourself. Question authority.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now, what's on everyone's mind lately? Well, that has been the next-gen Nintendo Switch, quite possibly coming in 2023 by Nintendo, and their recent discussion about it with their investors, and we have some new information to share about Samsung's production plans, and some very interesting information about Nvidia that yet again people may have not realized that could potentially make this next gen Switch discussion even more interesting going forward. So if you're excited about this discussion, please hit the like button and we will get started. Now, quite recently, Nintendo has discussed backwards compatibility for their next gen console. Quite possibly, we assume it to be a Switch 2 of sorts or another Nintendo Switch. Most people assume and agree that Nintendo will go about using the same idea for the Nintendo Switch 2, just basically making it much better and upgraded, of course, over the current Nintendo Switch, which is looking very long in the tooth at this point and outdated in terms of technology. Now, Nintendo discussing their next console or next plans with their investors is nothing new. They've been doing this for quite a long time now. Going as far back as late 2018, Nintendo has hinted or discussed plans for their next console. So it's been over 4 years since that time and over 5.5 years since the Switch was released. So now is about the time that they would actually, in terms of a historical standpoint by Nintendo standards, the 5 to 6 year mark is when they would release a next-gen console. And as we've seen of late, the Nintendo Switch sales of the hardware has in fact started to decline. Nintendo themselves has lowered their own outlook for the Switch consoles being sold by 2 million for the fiscal year. And the Switch has lost the NPD sales charts in the United States for 3 months in a row to the PlayStation 5, in fact coming in last place behind the Xbox Series consoles and PlayStation 5 in the month of October. And while most expect the Switch sales to increase for the month of November due to the gigantic sales of Pokemon, that still doesn't change the fact that the Switch, due to its reaching close to 120 million consoles sold for its install base, quite possibly has reached its saturation point as far as who has wanted the console, with the recent lowering of hardware sales backing that up, even in the midst of the releases of Splatoon 3, Bayonetta 3, and Mario Rabbids. So due to this and the timing of the Switch's technology being quite old at this point, and the historical timing that Nintendo has generally released a new console, with 6 years being the maximum time frame as to when Nintendo releases their next-gen hardware. If you recall, the NES to the SNES was 6 years, 1985 to 1991, and then SNES and 64 was 1991 to 1996. And then the GameCube from N64 was 1996 to 2001, and the Wii was 2006. Wii U was 6 years in 2012, and then they replaced the Wii U after 4.5 years in March of 2017 with the current system, the Nintendo Switch. So March of 2023 would be the 6 year mark of the lifespan of the Nintendo Switch, and now the sales do appear to have reached quite possibly their saturation level, with it going towards the declining aspect. Even though they still are selling quite well, Nintendo is now in fact seeing a decrease in sales. So in order to pick that up, coming out in 2023 with a next-gen Nintendo Switch could in fact negate any losses in their sales, continually boosting up the amount of sales they do in every fiscal year. And what a lot of Nintendo fans may not realize is that Nintendo more so wants to sell as many consoles as possible each year, not necessarily leaving one console alone just to increase its sales margin of that particular console to a certain number. What they've shown is that their goal is actually to sell at least 20 million consoles per year for their current hardware. And now they've actually decreased that to below 20 million for the first time since the Switch's first year on the market. And since the Nintendo Switch is the only piece of hardware that they are selling, it makes sense that they would introduce a new Nintendo Switch or a Switch 2 in 2023 to transition to the next generation, and then have a new goal set for another 20-25 million consoles sold per year, keeping that going without it having a dramatic fall off, with no other successor on the store shelves to pick up the slack if the Switch sales continue to drop after the holidays. So if Nintendo is continuing this mindset of year after year after year of continued sales growth and not sales declines, then yes, they most likely will be releasing a next-gen Nintendo Switch in 2023. And like we've talked about before, this does not mean that the current Nintendo Switch will simply stop being made and stop selling. Current Nintendo Switch will still be on the market for years to come, but Nintendo will need to transition away from that console as sales continue to decline. So if Nintendo does release this next-gen Switch in 2023, I do expect there to be quite a bit of cross-gen games being made for both consoles, and probably still some exclusives for the next-gen Switch in order to get people to transition away from the current Switch as they move forward for their new plans for the next generation. So what's happening in 2023? Well, it looks like Samsung has major plans in store for the next year, including for quite a few companies that they are looking to take the leadership position in developing 3nm process chips for not only Qualcomm and IBM, but also for Nvidia. It was just revealed a few days ago that TSMC has had a delay in their 3nm technology process, and Samsung, which started well in advance of them months and months ago, they already actually have 2 customers that they're making 3nm chips for. And this is getting very interesting because Nintendo, as we talked about in our last Nintendo Switch next gen hardware video back in July, Nintendo has a extremely good partnership with Samsung. Samsung makes a lot of the core components for the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch OLED consoles, and they've continued to do so even more recently by actually taking over even more parts in the production of the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch OLED. But due to the issues with China and the overseas market, Samsung has in fact started to look at other places to develop these chips, including in the United States, to increase production, which is great news for consoles, great news for mobile chip vendors, which includes all the companies, Nvidia, AMD, Nintendo. All these companies rely on these manufacturers to develop the latest chips in greater supply so they can sell more and make more money. With TSMC announcing their delay and with Samsung going full steam ahead already with 2 customers developing 3nm chips for mobile devices, it looks like Samsung is about to make a very strong case and position for them to be making the next gen Nintendo Switch in 2023. And they have the technology to do so with this 3nm process. This 3nm process will allow them to clock these chips at higher frequencies while outputting a lot less power consumption, which is exactly what Nintendo would want for a next generation Switch. And we have to remember Samsung also does NAND development for the Nintendo Switch as well. And Samsung continues to make announcements themselves with NAND development. Even this month, they are beginning mass production on 8th generation vertical NAND with industry's highest bit density. That's not to say that they would use this on a new Nintendo Switch, but it shows that Samsung is very versatile in what they develop. They don't just develop chips for other partners, they actually are innovating on their own technology to help other vendors with their own products. So this is something to keep an eye out with Samsung very closely. Exactly how are they going to be involved with this next gen Nintendo Switch? It does look like there's a very, very strong possibility that they will be producing this next gen Switch for Nintendo in 2023, if in fact it does release next year, which as of right now does look like an extreme possibility. And that brings us to our next interesting point of information about Nvidia. This is something we haven't talked about in a while on the channel, but it's something that you guys definitely should be made aware of. But there has been some interesting developments with Nvidia as of late with their partnerships from other companies and with their current landscape of what they're doing with their own GPUs and in the market themselves. But before we get into this, I want to make 100% clear that personally, I would actually want an Nvidia based Nintendo Switch as far as their next gen Switch is concerned, because Nvidia has the best GPUs on the market. They have the best technology in terms of upscaling with DLSS 2.4 and 3.0. The quality of DLSS is still better than AMD, and Nvidia's GPUs are the best on the market. They give you the best performance, and they have done so for the past 10 years over AMD. Everything AMD has done for the past 10 years in terms of PC graphics has not been as good as Nvidia's best on the market. And for myself personally, I do own a 3080 Ti on my own gaming PC, and it is a fantastic GPU. But putting that all aside, Nvidia as a company, I must say, they are terrible in terms of their anti-consumer practices, and their stubborn and arrogant attitude has definitely come back to haunt them a little bit here recently with the release of the RTX 4080. People simply are not buying that graphics card because Nvidia has priced it way too high at $1,200 when they released the 3080 graphics card just in late 2020 at $699. So a $500 price increase, and Nvidia basically saying too bad, too sad, you're gonna buy it anyway. That type of attitude has not set well with gamers, and they have simply not purchased that graphics card. A lot of stores still have those in stock. However, on top of that, Nvidia's attitude to their own partners has come to a boiling point as well, as recently with EVGA ending their partnership with Nvidia, pulling the plug basically on their own RTX 4090 version that they had made for Nvidia. They basically canceled that product and canceled their partnership with Nvidia, and announced a few months ago that they will be ending developing GPUs from this time forward because of the arrogant and bullish attitude of Nvidia, how they treat their partners. So how does this connect with Nintendo? Well, I want to show you a clip here from UFD Tech. This is Brett. He's the main guy on the channel there. This is what he had to say about Nvidia's partnerships with gaming companies in the past, dating back to Microsoft and PlayStation and Nintendo even, in regards to this information about EVGA leaving Nvidia. There was a big discussion about how partners simply do not enjoy working with Nvidia, and also how difficult it is to work with Jensen, the CEO of Nvidia. Here, take a look at this.
EVGA is losing hundreds of dollars on that. So Nvidia wants to control the entire product lineup, and I wouldn't be surprised in the next 5 to 10 years that Nvidia is only selling Founders Editions, because if there's one thing that's become clear over the years, Nvidia wants more profit. Jensen Huang is known for being very hard to work with and very controlling over his products, to the point that Microsoft dropped them, Sony dropped them when it came to consoles, and the only company that's working with them in the console space right now is Nintendo, and that's because Tegra had an overstock and they didn't really have to work with Nvidia on any R&D, and it was going to be a smoother relationship. Or you can look at a company like Tesla. They're not known for being easy to work with either, but any company that has used Nvidia in their product stack has moved on to different companies because they're easier to work with. And I don't necessarily see that changing. I wouldn't be surprised to see more companies pull out of what Nvidia is doing, or potentially with tomorrow's announcement of the RTX 40 series, we could find out that Nvidia is pulling some shenanigans with the 40 series that's going to screw over their partners and make it so that Nvidia's Founders Editions are the cards that you're going to want to buy.
So there's a couple interesting things here to take out from that information, and a lot of people may not realize this, but for the Microsoft Xbox original version that came out in 2001 and the PlayStation 3, both of those consoles were using Nvidia graphics cards. But the key thing about those graphics cards is that they were not actually using custom built graphics cards for their consoles. They were pretty much off the shelf parts, just like Nintendo with the Nintendo Switch with the Tegra X1 processor. They purchased that chip from Nvidia, which was an already mature and developed chip that Nvidia sold to them at a very good price. Nvidia has never actually developed R&D for another partner themselves. They have never done so. They have never actually made a chip for PlayStation, for Xbox, for Nintendo, of course, we know that. They never actually put in a custom SOC, for example, or with custom parts for a console, because a lot of times consoles need some type of custom built processor so they could have the power draw at a certain level and make things work in the way that that console maker wants it to be. Nvidia's bullish mindset has been that, hey, you know, if you're going to use our stuff, we make the best stuff in the market, so you're going to purchase our chips that we have already made for our own products, and you're going to use them in your console. No, we don't need to make nothing for you. We're Nvidia, we got the best things, you don't have to worry about that. will help you with the software side of things, which is what they did with the Nintendo Switch. They helped Nintendo with the API. We've discussed the NVN API in the past. However, Nvidia has never actually developed for a console maker something that they could use for a new console exclusively. So if Nvidia does actually make a fully customized chip just for Nintendo to use in their next gen Switch, that would actually be something that Nvidia has never done in their company's history, which is something very interesting to think about. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it will go against everything Nvidia has done up to this point if they were to do that just for Nintendo and not actually have a product that they would be using their own chip in for that they develop. And when you look at the current landscape of mobile tech and mobile devices and gaming on the go, nothing is using Nvidia products at this point. The only thing Nvidia is actually developing for are basically laptops. The only things that are being used are mobile variants of their desktop cards, which are still way too big and draw way too much power for a portable device like a Steam Deck or a Nintendo Switch, for example. So the caution regarding Nvidia and them developing for Nintendo here for a next-gen Switch would be just that. Since they have no current chip on the market that is designed for mobile graphics or basically gaming on the go, they don't have a brand new Tegra gaming processor, they would have to make a completely customized version of their Orin or Ampere architecture for a next-gen Nintendo Switch, something that they have never done for any other console manufacturer in the past. So that's something to think about when you consider what could be powering this next-gen Nintendo Switch. Will it actually be powered by something from Nvidia, which I think would be great if it was, because they make the best stuff on the market, or will it be powered by something else, maybe something that Samsung has in development themselves with other partners? We'll have to wait and see, but I definitely wanted to put that out there just to make you guys aware that under normal circumstances, Nvidia typically already has a product made for a certain type of vendor that wants to use their product that's already made from Nvidia. They generally don't make customized parts for their partners. So I'm not trying to steer you in any direction here, guys, but I'm just simply giving you information that you can think about and ponder over as we go forward. Either way, though, I do think that if Samsung is involved, which it looks like they most likely will be, this next-gen Nintendo Switch is going to be something really special. I'm really excited to see what Nintendo has planned, and when they do finally reveal it, I'm sure we'll be very excited with what that is. And who knows, a reveal could be coming as soon as January after the holidays. If the trend continues for the current Nintendo Switch, Nintendo will in fact need to be releasing a new Switch, most likely in 2023. Alright guys, thanks so much if you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button if you did, leave a comment for me and we can discuss it in the comment section. And I'll talk to you very soon in the next video. Have a great day.